I always thought that the only way to be able to produce music and to make yeah, to make good music that sounds professional was to go in the studio. To go in the studio and record with an engineer, etc., and pay a ton of money back then to record. So, as a kid or as a teenager, all we dreamed about was signing to a record company so that we could have the possibility to have a budget, and those people would pay for studio time. And yeah. So when I record my first album, even if we recorded in Cayenne, in Guyane, recorded the whole album out there, it was still a studio. Route de Montabot, Studio 3S. That's where I recorded my first album. And studio, engineer, bands, etc., etc. So the normal stuff. First album, second album I recorded in New York. The first one was mixed at the Studio La Grande Armée, so it cost a lot of money, you know. What up, Irving? And as I recorded the second album in New York, yeah, you know, the dream was to be in the best studios with the best engineers to record in, you know, those to have that sound, to have like the Neve sound, to have using all those huge boards to record in the same legendary studio as a legendary artist. That was back in the days the dream of every artist, me, and it was my dream as well. When I recorded my third album at Studio Harrison in Paris, and Caribbean Soul in Studio Latitude 101 of Ronald Ribiner, when I was done recording, and I started recording also Soumia's album at Section Zouk Studio, DigiDream, technology was changing. Technology was changing and changing and changing, but technology was still, well, I would say that something that was really very interesting at a point was the first hard drives that you could take with you out of the studio, but it was still slow. And then it was very interesting how technology was. I remember the first time there was a 64 megabyte pen where you could put some images and maybe some files. And it was a revolution to have something so small and hold so much technology. It was a 64 megabyte was, for us at that time, was wow. And then one day I remember going to the studio, and I bought a new pen. It was a pen drive of that size, and inside you could put 8 gigabytes. 8 gigabytes was huge at that time. Today, those pens can hold up to 200 gigabytes or maybe more. So I think, listen, in an iPhone, you can have 1 terabyte now. So it's 1,000 gigabytes. But at that time, I remember when, so I'm talking about 2002, 2003, you had like up to 8 gigabytes or 16 gigabytes that you could put in one pen drive. And I remember the first time that, so before that, when I used to record, you would have to turn all your tracks into track by track so you could go mix them in the studio. So most of the time you had to go with all your instruments, all your synthesizers, and re-record them track by track. So the kick, the snare, the percussion, the congas, the piano, the bass, etc. You had to track everything to the tapes. Then we started using Pro Tools, which is was kind of the same as recording on tapes, but everything was going to hard drives. So you still had to bring your stuff at the studio, but instead of recording in tapes that were expensive, you would record inside of a hard drive. So the more drives you had, or if you had external drive, you kind of had unlimited possibilities. So you could have more tracks to record. So you could record like 20 tracks of a chorus with the harmonies, etc., the voicings, but not the same as the tapes where you had limited time. A tape was like 8 minutes or 20 minutes, I don't remember, and you only had like 8 tracks or 12 or 16, depending on the number of tapes that you could put and the number of players that you had. So it was crazy at that time. And I remember that one day, I start working with Digital Performer, and on Digital Performer, it was the first program that I used where I could record all my instrument track by track at home. And it's very interesting how when technology and art find themselves in that moment where they meet themselves, you have disruption, and technology changes everything. So one day I remember coming to the studio and not bringing my instruments and not bringing a big hard drive, but just bringing a key, a small key of this size, a pen drive. And everybody was like, yo, what is this? And I was like, this is a session for tonight. The instrumental is there with all the tracks. And I would give the pen to the studio engineer. And he was like, wow. And everybody was like, come on, wait, you have your whole session in here? Like, yeah. And from then on, going to the studio was less heavy for me. It was less cumbersome because I could just put everything in a small pen drive. And then something super interesting happened to me. Rest in peace, Nzongo Soul. So it's an artist that was part of a group in France in the 70s. It was the first Congolese kind of rock band, I would say. And he also had a solo career. And sadly, he passed away in 2018. But back in 2003, I think it's 2003, maybe before, I'm not sure. Maybe it's 2001, I'm not sure. But we had the same manager. So Guylaine Cléry, my manager, was also working with him. And she told me, I think we went to meet him at a restaurant called Kaysha, where is a very famous restaurant in Paris where you eat comment on dit poulet braisé? Amber chicken in the middle of Paris, in Châtelet. And so we went, she told me, yo, you guys have to connect, you have to do something together. So I met him. He was like, yo, little brother, nice to meet you. Big brother, hey. So what you have in mind? Yo, I would love to work with you on the track. Yeah, let's go. You need a beat, whatever. No. Just come to the studio and I need you to put a rap, one of your raps in one of my tracks. I think it's gonna be cool. And I was like, yo, bro, listen, no problem, big bro. Just let me know when and let's make it happen. So great connection. My manager tells me a week after that we're going to Nzongo's house to listen to the song. So I'm like, yeah, let's go, let's make it happen. So we go to his house, and when we arrive, there was a bunch of people. There were some, those very artistic African apartments where you have like people of all color, white women dressed as Africans, painters, this, that, a big buffet, big plate where everybody's eating with their hand and with their spoon in the same plate, like stuff that kind of I was not used to in Paris. And so we're all here, we talking, and everybody's eating, and then we talk about the song. He explains to me what he wants to do, where he wants to go with the song, what the song is talking about, etc., etc. I'm like, yeah, all good. Yeah, whenever you're ready, let's go to the studio and listen to the song. So, everybody keeps eating. We in this, we here eating mafé, and at a point we done, and everybody's talking, chilling, and me, I'm like, well, I mean, I'm starting to be bored, and I mean, I came here to record, not to eat mafé and talk with a bunch of strangers. So I asked my manager, so when are we recording? Like, when are we going to the studio? So my manager go talk to Nzongo and tell him, hey, listen, Kaysha has things to do, and he'd love to know when can we record? And they tell me, yeah, whenever he's ready. I'm like, word? No, I'm ready then. So I'm taking my jacket so we can go back, to go to the studio. And I see that you had an engineer that was there. Turn on the computer. And so we were all in this big living room, right? So they turn on the computer, and he gives me the song to listen to. And they tell me, you want to write now? I say, yeah. So I take my phone. At that time, I don't know what phone I had, some Nokia or some Palm Pilot. And I listen to the beat, and I start writing my verse. I write my rap, da-da-da-da-da. So after 20 minutes, I'm done with my 12 bars or 8 bars. I don't remember how much it was. And I tell them, all right, I'm ready. So now I'm ready to go to the studio. And I see that everybody that was, it was kind of like an art gallery. So I see now the painter, those women that were there, and there was this woman, she was a painter, this guy was a painter, 2 girls apparently were singers. Everybody went to sit down. So I'm asking Guylaine, so aren't we going to the studio? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, you find out. And the engineer takes a microphone on a tripod and puts it in the middle of the living room with something in the back for the acoustic. And Nzongo tells everybody, okay, he's gonna record. Please be silent. And I'm like, we're gonna record in the living room? What the fuck? And yeah. So I'm like, okay, listen, I guess it's some artisanal shit. All right, no problem. So the engineer stopped. So I see the engineer is using a program to do the vocals and to record the program straight from the computer in a house. And I'm like, yo, what is this program? All right. We go. So they put me the song in my headphones. They play it a bit just for me to be ready, and I say, okay, I'm ready. So they say, silence everybody. Put the instrumental. I start rocking. I think I recorded maybe in one or two takes. Verse done. I say I want to put the backing vocals. Say, okay, put me a second verse. Put my rap, da 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 da, and then I did another track where I'm talking the whole song. And then I take my thing and I say, I think I'm done. And everybody's going back to talking in the living room. Everybody's going back to, the painter goes back to talking about his painting. I think he was showing some of stuff. I think the other person, blah, 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 goes back. People are eating. People are coming and going. It's like, and I'm like, what just happened? So I ask the sound engineer, excuse me, like, did we do a demo or is this the final song? And he tells me, this is the final song. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't record in the studio. And he's like, I mean, a studio is just a room. And yeah, I mean, the acoustic is a little prepared for sound, whatever, but it's digital. And I'm like, wait a minute. What computer are you using? Oh, it's a Mac, whatever, Power Mac G3. I was like, I have this at home. And he's like, I'm like, but what program are you using? He's like, oh, it's called Digital Performer. I'm like, Digital Performer. So I write it down. And I'm like, what microphone did you use? Like, what about the sound? What about the sound of the street? And he's like, well, a few plugins and this, that. I mean, if you listen to yourself, you see that as long as everybody's silent, there's not much difference, especially with the technology of today. Mind you, this is 20 years ago. It's like, with the technology of today, I mean, sounds great. And listen, I'm gonna put some filters to remove any sound that passed, or I'm just gonna edit them out, and with a little bit of equalization, things will sound normal. What up, Senex? Things will sound the same as if it was recorded in the studio. So I'm like, wait a minute. What is the name of the microphone? Oh, this is the name of the microphone. And I'm asking all the questions. Like, how do you do? What do you do? Da, da, da. And soon as we went out of that session, my life as a creator changed. Because when that CD came out, I could not do the difference. I could not hear the difference between this and something that was recorded in the studio. It was me, same voice, sounding the same as always. And I was like, wait. And he recorded his whole album this way. Listen, I did a few shows. I think once I had like, I don't know, 5,000 or whatever amount I had, I don't remember. I had my list that I wrote of every equipment that he used. I bought this microphone that I've been recording on for the last 20 years, which is my TLM 103 from Neumann. I bought the same microphone exactly after that day, from the money from the shows. I bought that. I bought a new Mac, a little more powerful, or maybe I bought some memory for my Mac and some new drives. I bought Digital Performer. I think I probably spent 5,000 euros at that point. And I recorded and I created my home recording studio. And I started like buying everything I needed so that one day I could just record from my house. And by the time I got my new apartment, so in 2000 I think it's 2006. Wait. Yeah, 2005. I got my new apartment. When I got my new apartment, I set up a little corner in my living room that became my recording studio, my home recording studio. And at that time, this was a revolution. And it completely changed my perspective on how we do music, because we tend to believe that to make great music, you need to spend a lot of money. And actually, after that, I never went back. Sometimes I record in studios, but it's more for the convenience, if there's house or if there are people in my house. But I started recording first my albums, and I took it slowly. In 2005, I started recording my own albums at home, but I would record Sumia, Elisio, ABG, Isa, Taina, etc., Les DS. I would record that in studio. Then I start bringing Sumia to record in my house. And actually, she really preferred recording in my house because it was just the both of us. And we could really take our time, do it at the time we want, afternoon, night, whatever, have conversation, make a pose, go eat something, come back, record, talk between and I start recording a lot of things in my house and a lot of things in the studio, and there would be no difference in the sound because in the studio we had the same microphone that I have here. And I think it costs $1,000. I mean, back then it cost $1,000. I don't know how much it costs today, but these completely changed my perspective on creation, and it's also changed my perspective on independence. Because once you have invested in your own studio, in your house, you actually don't need nobody anymore to create your content. You don't need to have people paying for you. And mind you, that was 20 years ago. Imagine today. Today, the Chinese, the Swedish, the Japanese, the Koreans, they do copies of this microphone, but that you can buy for 200 or like this one. Look, this is the MV7, but it's Michael Jackson recorded Thriller on the version from 30 years ago of this microphone, but it was not USB, it was XLR, which is this cable there in the back. This is XLR. And today, you can have this microphone. I think it costs $250. And you have two cables. You have one USB cable that is here, that is plugged to my computer. And here I have my headphones so I can hear myself. And the whole microphone comes with its own sound card. All you need. So I have another cable that comes with this microphone, so I could plug it to my phone. So if I plug it to my phone, the cable can go directly from the microphone to my iPhone, and I can use GarageBand, and I can record the same vocals of the same quality that we used to pay $1,000 per day. You can record it straight from your house or straight from your hotel room. Like I recorded, listen, my album Legendary was recorded in a hotel room. Some songs were recorded in the hotel room. I have some songs recorded in Pemba, Mozambique. I got some songs recorded in Luanda, Angola. I got some songs recorded in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. I got some songs recorded in Paris from just me, a laptop, a microphone, a USB mic. And I have some songs and nobody would, when you listen to the album Legendary, you will not know which songs, because they all sound the same. And this completely changed my perspective on creation, on music, and on the business of making music.